Okay, so, disclaimer before we begin, this will not be a ponage video. I'm not going to throw in any flair. I'm not going to do a dance. I'm not going to, make a big production out of this. I'm not going to put any style to this that would make anyone feel bad, okay? I am simply going to answer a question that was sent directly to me from my good friend, the Bruce Meister. Okay, so, some of you might know Bruce Areno as Stigmadane, Stigmatibus, Reign of Omens, Fallen Ashoba, and this video comes to me from the Wolf of Grace channel. So, he sent it to me, and I'm pretty sure when he says it in the description in this video, answer the question in the video, he means this in a way where he's tired of atheists, especially YouTube atheists, not answering his questions directly. And it's because, most of the time it's because the questions that come to these atheists and skeptics are based on false premises, and they feel that to answer the question fully, they have to address those false premises. But at the end of this video right here, I promise I will answer the question in the video directly. Okay? But yeah, I do feel like explaining some of the false premises within it. So, let us begin, shall we? So the video starts with, let there be light. Those were the words of his God, I presume. Next it says, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. And in parentheses, which is not in the Bible at all, he has his interpretation of that, which would be empty space and matter. Given that in the following verses, heaven is a firmament between the oceans and the air. It's kind of weird the way that it's described because it doesn't match what we now know about the world, but I would say that this is his interpretation, the empty space part. Heaven is not normally synonymous with empty space, and earth isn't synonymous with matter. Earth is the place, that the stuff beneath your feet, maybe, but yeah, not matter, because, human beings, our hands are made of matter, things in space that are not part of the earth, the sun and the moon and all the stars, they're all made of matter, so they're not synonymous either. But this is his interpretation of that verse. I'll give him that. His interpretation, he is entitled to it. Also, at this point, I'd just like to point out that this is wrong. Just the first verse in Genesis is wrong, because it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, so the heavens, I'm going to say, is like the universe, like everything in space, all the stars we can see and all that. And that's actually, 13.7 odd billion years old, as far as the current estimates that I've seen. And the Earth is about 4.6 billion years old. So they weren't created at the same time. So in the beginning, the heaven was created. If he's saying that empty space, was created in the beginning, and that's heaven, that would line up. But Earth was not created until 4.6 billion years ago. So, yeah, not right. On to the second verse that's in his video, which is Genesis 1:3. And God said, let there be light. Also, this is wrong compared to what science tells us, because the Earth was just created before light. Okay? Our sun existed before the Earth existed. Wrong. So, and then in parentheses, his interpretation, it says, adding light to the mix of space and matter, which caused the expansion. Also, you can interpret it as saying that, but you're getting information from that that is actually false compared to what we know through verifiable science. Now in this third frame, Bruce Areno says, science expresses the universe in 5 terms: time, space, matter, power, and motion. I will just take that on its face, and he says that in Genesis 1 and 2, Genesis 1, verse 1 and 2, rather, that it's revealed by the Hebrews in 1450 BC. Again, just taking that on its face. I don't know the actual date of the translation or version of Genesis that he's working with. We find the beginning. In the beginning, we have time. God created, which I guess he's saying that God creating matter is power, but yeah, that would go against certain laws that we have in science. Think thermodynamics. And the heaven, space, which, yeah. And the earth, matter. There's matter in outer space. Damn it. And the Spirit of God moved, and that constitutes motion because a ethereal entity moved upon the face of the waters. Not the waters moving. But that kind of counts as motion. And then I guess what he's saying here is that in the first 2 verses, you can find a verb that would describe something that has to do with all 5 of those things. And I wonder how many different verses in different books, how many different stanzas in poetry, and how many different works, even before the Bible was written, could be related to all 5 of those things if you tried to construe them hard enough. I really do. Lastly, the Bruce Meister, he asks, how could a person in 1450 BC have this kind of scientific knowledge if this kind of research hadn't been invented yet? And then he ends up his video with some nice science, because, you know, when you have pseudoscience, it's always nice to throw some science in there. Okay. My simple and direct answer to that question is he could not have had that knowledge. You know, that if you're calling it scientific knowledge, he could not have had that scientific knowledge if science and verifiability and all of the methods for which to gain that knowledge had not been invented yet. That would be a wild-ass guess. And I'm guessing that Mega Bruce is trying to say that this is an awesome coincidence, that it actually points to some sort of revelation from a higher power or being to Earthlings on Earth, and that higher power or being already had this technology or science, or knew it because he did it, right? But the problem is, all of the information is wrong, so it's not even a stunning coincidence, it's just wrong. In Genesis, the earth is created before light, and before stars, and before the sun, and we know that to be wrong. Also in Genesis, birds and whales are said to have been created before insects and reptiles, which we also know through science to be wrong. these birds and whales were also created before flowering plants and all the rest of the animals. And we know through the order of phylogeny, through many different fields of science, that all of that is wrong. Through scientific exploration and now just leisure travel, we know that there's no firmament in between the higher waters and the lower waters. That is just wrong. And then on the third day, God says to let the earth bring forth grass, from the ground, before there's even a sun to feed the grass through photosynthesis. And what we know about the evolution of plants says that is wrong. And then on the fourth day, God creates two great lights, the sun and the moon. Only we know that the moon doesn't create its own light. It only reflects the light from the sun. What we know about that through science now tells us that that is wrong. Creating complex organisms out of dust or clay or the ribs of their mates? Wrong. The order in which man appeared on the earth, happening after all the other animals, that would be correct in Genesis 1, but then in Genesis 2, the order is flipped, and it's wrong. In closing, Bruce, I'd just like to offer you a feeling, really. This feeling is that when I was a young child and I was taught that everything that mankind had ever observed was created in 6 days, that didn't fulfill me at all. My quest for knowledge wasn't over after one book. And in learning that the creation or the universe or whatever you want to call it actually took, between 12 and 14 billion years to form, and that new stars are created just about every day, and that this creation continues to happen, I feel that the world is so much more beautiful now that I have the blinders lifted off of me. And it's a wonderful feeling. Reality and science are so much more beautiful than that ancient book could ever be.